Hello, everybody. It's Dave Neal, stand-up comic host of Bachelor Nation News, and we've got some pretty good tea to share with you from Katie Thurston on the famous She's All Batch podcast, good friends of the program. I'm going to share just 3 or 4 different clips with you. I encourage you to run, not walk, to this episode. You're going to love what you hear. Of course, Katie Thurston, one of the co-stars of the new F-Boy show on the CW network. It's free on the app. Go check it out. But of course, we have unfinished business to attend to. Let's go to the Instagram reel that She's All Batch shared, which highlights a few of the fun clips, and then we'll dive in deeper. Have a listen.
So truly, it was all the way up to the point where we're talking the overnight situation. And at this point, Greg is still there, and they're asking literally felt like minute by minute. They're like, who do you want to go first? Who do you think you're going to pick?
Wait, they let you choose?
Yeah, I'm like, it's crazy to hear that they were asking your opinion on the order, because I feel like other people get kind of like sabotaged with the order selected for them.
But maybe that's what they were trying to do to you.
I only had one, so I don't know if they would have allowed me to go with the order I picked.
What was your order?
Blake was first. I knew it was going to be Blake before any overnight with Greg.
All right, so she says she knew it was going to be Blake, and then, of course, as you see in the thumbnail here, Greg came off a little insecure. Now, is that clickbaity? No, that's what she said, but of course, I don't think she meant it in any deep jabs, but let's have a listen to several of the clips. I'm going to play for you Katie having her vibrator overnighted to the set, and then I'm going to share the engagement story here. Have a listen.
No. It was brand new, like never been used before.
The vibrator.
Who bought it though?
The producers.
So that's crazy to me though, because I would think that it at least was yours, or at least you packed it. So did they come up with the idea? I
feel like for legal reasons, they use a new vibrator. It's like they don't need a used vibrator for the bit.
That was a collaborative effort. And so that's the one thing people misunderstand is like, you can have all these ideas of what you want to do, but it has to be greenlit. You know, it's going on television, it's going on ABC. And so we had this idea. We didn't know if it was going to be okay or not. And once it got approved, they overnighted an Amazon find and we made it happen.
Can you imagine being the intern? They're like, we need you to get a female pleasuring device. The guy's like, a vibrator? Yeah, get us one of those. We just tried to pass it through corporate and that sounded better. Okay, let's go to where Katie found out she was going to be the Bachelorette because of reality. Steve, have a listen.
And watching his stronger connections like with Rachel, I was like, I stood no chance, but I thought for sure I'm going to go to hometowns with this man.
Right. How soon after you leave Matt's season is ABC calling you for Bachelorette?
You know, I don't really know like what their strategy is, because I was told to like, you know, I'm being considered, but I know a lot of girls were told they're being considered. So I don't really know if they're waiting for the public perception, if they're seeing who is single by the time I think March comes around. Because truly my official announcement was with Michelle on stage. Like when Reality Steve had leaked that I was Bachelorette, I hadn't even signed anything. So it was just like, am I Bachelorette? I don't know. I haven't signed a contract. So it's very like up to the wire with how they make their decisions.
So Katie's essentially waiting to go on after the final rose, gets a text message from Michelle Young, finds out Michelle Young's in the running, and I'm sure there's a lot of issues, like you don't know for sure until the check clears if you're the Bachelorette. Are they going to choose someone else? And then, of course, we find out they're doing back-to-back seasons. How amazing. And then, of course, they went from back-to-back seasons to Gabby and Rachel, so Katie went from Bachelorette to 3 other Bachelorettes within the year, which, of course, you know, can definitely take some wind out of the sails, as it were. All right, speaking of having wind taken out of the sails, I received a cease and desist letter yesterday. Yes, my first official notice to not only desist, but also cease. I said, could I desist and not cease? They were like, no, you have to cease and desist. I was like, if I cease, but then continue to desist. They're like, that's not how it works. I was like, okay, I desist, I cease. I'll do both and or. But either way, I am advised by legal counsel not to comment on it until they get a chance to look at it a little bit further. Although I will tell you this, on Patreon today, I'm actually away in Arizona, in the state of which the person who is telling me to desist and cease is. But I will cover that briefly on today's Patreon, just exactly how crazy it is. We've got a lot of information about the lawyer who sent me the cease and desist. Turns out they have cease and desist practicing law in other states. Why is that? Well, the truth is pretty funny. So if you want to get into that story, and if you want to throw some bread in the tip jar for all legal funds, please join the Patreon at patreon.com/Dave Neal. That's right, folks. Okay, let's go to the next clip here, which is going to be getting down to the engagements.
Yeah.
So, okay, you become the Bachelorette. Obviously, we know like who your front runners were. I'm so curious though, if Blake didn't show up mid-season, do you think you would have gotten engaged to someone else that season?
It's hard to know because I know people always speculate on like my connections and Greg being the real, winner. Greg and Michael would have definitely been, if Blake wasn't there, like a top two. The tough part with both of them is I remember filming with Greg, he came off a little like insecure or in his head. And so I thought, how is that going to translate into the real world when we're like in the spotlight? That was my concern. And he was East Coast. But we had conversations about me, moving over there because he's so close with his family.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's also Michael, who was very transparent with me in that he probably wouldn't propose at the end, even if like at that point we thought he'd still be there. And so I knew if it was going to be Michael, there's a chance of just walking with a boyfriend, and that's a little disheartening. It's like I went through hell to walk away with a boyfriend,
right.
So, obviously like things happen the way they did. So it's hard to know like an alternative universe, what would have happened, but Blake showed up and Blake was obviously my choice.
Right. Good choice. But Justin was your final.
She goes, good choice. All right. And they mentioned Justin being a finalist as well, but didn't have the same connection. As you guys know, we talked to Justin on Driving with Dave, and he said him and Katie had fantastic conversations. They really hit it off, but no drama there to share. All right. Our final clip.
And make a very serious decision.
Mm-hmm.
And with Justin and his family not being there, it just felt a little, like a missing piece that I needed to make such a big decision.
Can we talk a little bit about like your final fight with Greg? Not the AFR one, but like when you guys broke up on the show. I'm curious if there was like a piece of the puzzle there that we didn't see as viewers, because I feel like that was right after your guys' hometown and something just like so drastically switched within him. And I feel like as a viewer, I'm like, wait, but like, where's the disconnect here? Like, what did we not see is basically my question.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that happens. And what's really unfortunate is, in some ways, I feel like I was just as blindsided as viewers. And I remember being like, I'm going to watch it back and I'm going to have more understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And watching it back, I didn't. And that was frustrating. Because I remember when we had our first disagreement during hometowns, of course, we then have to go our separate ways. And I had to continue on, doing all the other things. And I kept asking, like, how's he doing? Can I see him? And of course, they're like, oh, he's fine. And no, you cannot see him, So I'm thinking truly the night, the hometowns, I truly thought he was just drunk. I was like, oh, he's just, people have a switch,
Mm-hmm.
That's truly what I thought. And I was like, he's going to go to bed, sleep it off, and we're just going to go right on track. And then when he knocked on my door, of course, you're just like, oh my God, like it's never good when a guy knocks on the door. So you're like, where's this going?
Because I feel like as a viewer, I was always kind of feeling like Greg was the front runner the whole time. Did you feel like once he had gone home that like you had to kind of downplay that relationship because you then were like engaged to Blake?
Sorry, my cat is trying to come.
No, you're fine.
Great questions right here.
Wait, what's the cat's name? I feel like I know the
Tommy.
cat too.
This is Tommy.
I was going to say Johnny. Yes, Tommy. I knew that.
Johnny's an ex.
Yeah, they're asking great questions here. Look, these are the types of questions where as many times as Katie has been on different podcasts, there are still loops yet to be closed that people want to know about her and Greg Ripple. And like she says, she was just as blindsided as viewers. She like that's what it comes down to is when someone's just not that into you for whatever reason in their life, in their season, that's just how it works. And sometimes you don't get all the information as to why.
No, so truly it was up all the way up to the point where we're talking the overnight situation. And at this point, Greg is still there and they're asking literally felt like minute by minute. They're like, who do you want to go first? Who do you think you're going to pick? And I really held off, up until that decision of an overnight, because I do think the order that you go can really make or break a relationship.
Wait, they let you choose?
Yeah, I'm like, it's crazy to hear that they were asking your opinion on the order, because I feel like other people get kind of sabotaged with the order selected for them.
But maybe
it's also crazy to think, and I don't doubt Katie here, none of us have been in that position, but she says the order of the fantasy suites can make or break what happens with your season. To think that your whole life moving forward can be dependent on who you choose in the fantasy suites, maybe first, maybe second. Is it the last impression or the first impression? Now, for her season, she really just had Blake because Michael had left. And you know what's interesting with Michael, and maybe if I was interviewing Katie, I would ask this question a little bit because I like to pry. But what's interesting is she has unfollowed him. We don't know why. I've never asked her. But of course, she and Michael had a very serious connection. Once her relationship with Blake didn't end, we have it on good record that Michael may have tried to see what was up in the neighborhood of Katie Thurston's, and that didn't, of course, lead to anything. Was it Michael and Danielle's relationship ending? Did that cause a rift there, or did she get, as they like to call it in today's world, the ick? Did she get the ick? Did Greg get the ick? Maybe Greg got the ick on Katie's season. Are you getting the ick listening to me? I don't know. Who's got the ick? Hit the like button if you ick Dave an odd number of times. So they discussed Danielle and Michael, to bring this full circle, on the Almost Famous podcast, which I don't feel like is that interesting. But what is interesting on the Almost Famous podcast is that they discuss Clayton Echard, which I'm going to talk about next in our next video. So stick around for that. Your boy is desisting. He is ceasing, but he is not quitting, okay? Patreon.com/Dave Neal. Vote with your dollar if you don't want me to be silenced by sort of bullies out there on the internet. Go to patreon.com/Dave Neal and put your money where your mouth is, folks. All right, we'll be back with more right after this.